Welcome to the Veteran Benefits Podcast. I'm your host, Rebecca Deming. Today we have a very exciting guest, Socrates Rosenfeld. He is the co-founder and CEO of Jane Technologies, and he is an Army veteran. So welcome, Socrates.
Thank
Awesome
you.
to have you
Thank
here.
you. Yeah, thanks so much. It's really a pleasure to be on the show.
So for those of you who aren't familiar with Jane, it is a medical marijuana industry or medical and recreational marijuana, right?
Yeah, we do both medical and adult use cannabis. We're in 40 state markets across the country, supporting thousands of retailers and helping retailers and brands with their digital ecosystem, largely e-commerce, advertising, in-store ordering. And then for consumers, our goal is to provide access to this plant in ways that's really personalized to them. And we can talk about that on the show.
I just kind of wanted to set the scene for what we'll be talking about, but you've got a really interesting background and how you got into the Army and how you kind of found your career path getting out of the Army. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. How I was getting into the army was I was a master of the should. Shout out to my friend Scott Harrington who coined that phrase for me, which I love. Meaning I was very good at achieving things when I was younger because that's how I received love. And so when I was in high school, I didn't know, I didn't really get much guidance around college, and my family didn't have money for me to go to school. So I was actually going to enlist in the Marines, and because I wanted to go on this adventure and see what else was out there. And a lot of my teachers and coaches and guidance counselors were telling me, oh, if you want to go in the military, you should check out this school called West Point. And I didn't really know much about it. I applied. I was a wrestler at the time, and the wrestling coach took an interest in me, and I was really lucky to be accepted into the school. And then I got there, Rebecca, and it was a real shock for me as an 18-year-old kid.
Can imagine.
Yeah, not really knowing what I got myself into, and I made the experience a lot harder than I really had to. Didn't understand that I could follow rules and not lose my sense of self,
Mm.
but I felt like if I followed any rules, then so long story short, I got in a lot of trouble at school. I
Mm.
graduated really by like the skin of my teeth. I was fortunate enough to be high enough in the rankings to get into aviation. Again, another example, Rebecca, where I wasn't like, oh, I really want to do this in the Army. I just kind of asked people, hey, what do you think I should do? And I ended up flying Apache helicopters. I actually had a really fulfilling time in the military, largely because I was in leadership positions, and that's where my passion for leading and growing teams was born. Was in Korea, I was in Iraq, did some trainings, and then I was really losing my sense of self in the service. I was really disconnected from my own self. I was disconnected from my wife, my family. I was on this kind of hamster wheel of deployment and training and what's next and what's the next achievement. And I looked ahead at the senior officers in my chain of command. And as much as I respected some of them, I didn't want to live the life that they were living at the age that they were living. I said, okay, I'm going to make the tough decision to get out. It was a really
So
scary decision.
how how many years were you in when you decided to get out?
I was 7 years in active duty, and then I made the decision to get out. So I was in for like about 8 years total. And at the time, I really felt like I was turning my back on my friends. But really, in retrospect, what I was doing was turning that focus back to my own self, which was really, really important.
Yeah,
And
I feel like
so,
that's a big should is after you've done more than your first 4 years, you're like, well, if you at
right,
this point you've done seven, at this point you've done eight, you should stay in the
exactly,
20 and get retirement. You should,
exactly. You
make
should
rank.
go to this unit. You should make rank. You should, and it's enticing for
Yeah.
someone like me that at the time found acceptance through achieving. And maybe that resonates with some folks listening.
Yeah.
And so I got out and I followed the should again, Rebecca. I was like, okay, I'm out. What should I do? And people were telling me, oh, you should go to business school. And I didn't even know that there was a thing called business school. I didn't know what that even meant. They said, oh, you should go to Harvard. Do you want me to go into the details of this? Because there's an interesting little detour talking about Grameen Bank where it's like, okay, I'm going to go apply to Harvard Business School. And it
Yeah.
was the only school I applied to because that's what everybody told me I should do.
Did you get into one of the veteran specific programs or military specific programs at Harvard Business School? Or
No, I didn't. I didn't even get an interview at Harvard, and so here I was. I remember putting my paperwork, like signing my exit forms at Fort Hood. I was 29 years old, and I told with my wife I had no job, I wasn't going to school, and I had no idea what I was going to do. And I remember calling a close mentor of mine and friend. He said, "What interests you?" And that was the first time someone actually asked me, like, what am I interested in? And I remember reading a book called A Fistful of Rice, talking about microfinance, and I was reading it in Iraq, and I was like, wow, microfinance seems to be bringing peace to places where people just need a little bit of hope, and doing it in a really creative way. And I said, I read this book, I'm really interested in that, and through Kismet, I was able to essentially volunteer my time with Grameen Bank for the year. I got to go to Guatemala and completely do something that there was no should. It was just from the heart. And that was a really beautiful time.
and that's awesome. I my undergraduate degree was development sociology, international development, and the Grameen
Beautiful.
Bank I think is kind of it's one of the organizations that we studied in our undergraduate program. That's kind of the one of the original microfinance organizations, and now others have sprung up and stuff. But it's kind of
Yeah.
the mecca of microfinance in the developing world, and that's
Yeah.
really cool. So
Yeah.
for
That's
for
cool.
listeners who aren't familiar with it, I saw that on his LinkedIn page, and I was like, that's so cool.
Yeah. It was a really, Muhammad Yunus and his team, what they've done is pretty incredible. And here I was flying an Apache helicopter 24 hours a day, 7 days a week over Baghdad. And what I was able to see and the impact I was able to experience on the ground in Guatemala by giving microloans to largely women, and seeing the impact they were making in their communities and their families was orders of magnitude more impactful than anything I ever did in the Army to bring peace to the world. And so I was like, okay, following my heart, there's something here. And again, through Kismet, I was able to reapply to business school. I went back to Boston to MIT Sloan to go and study. And during that time, I was struggling with my transition back home. And I mean to
Mm.
the metaphorical home, not the physical home, because I thought, okay, if I go back to Boston where I'm from and my family's there and my old friends and I know the culture, everything will be back to normal. And a lot of veterans go through that only to realize home is not a physical place. Home is back to the heart. And I was disconnected from my heart at the time. I was, for obvious reasons, through that's what the military does. They train you to kind of disconnect from natural human emotion so that you can go and do the job that you were trained to do. But as a human being, as a husband, as a son, a brother, a friend, a member of my community, if I wasn't connected to my heart, I wasn't connected to any of it. And I was working hard, I was studying, I was working out, I was doing everything that I thought I should be doing until finally none of it was working. And my wife, my brother, and my close friend, who ended up being a co-founder at Jane, said, "Hey, I know you have never tried cannabis before, but you're struggling to sleep, you're struggling to find homeostasis and balance, you're struggling to have emotional resilience. Why don't you just what they told me was like, why don't you smoke a joint and try this before you say absolutely not?" And so
What was
reluctantly, I
your
did.
reaction when they said that? Were you resistant at first or?
Oh, very much so. I was terrified of the plant. It was all the misinformation that was told to me at a very young age through the DARE program
Mhm. This is your brain
was
on
that,
drugs and the fried
oh
egg
yeah, I
and
was going to fry my brain. I was going to get it. I was going to jump out of a window. I was going to be a criminal. I was going to get addicted to heroin. All these horrible things that I thought. And then the social stigma around like, oh, you're lazy, or it's really kind of looking back, it's pretty ridiculous. And so I reluctantly tried it, and that's a big one for any veterans out there that are trying to figure out a relationship with the plant. In any plant medicine, there's this terminology called set and setting, where first is the set, meaning setting the intention. Why are you using the medicine? And I think a lot of people at a young age use things mindlessly. I certainly did with alcohol. But here I was at 30 years old, able to really set the intention to say, no, I'm using this medicine to get well. And that's my intention. And then the setting piece is the environment in which I'm consuming this plant and engaging with this experience. It needs to be one of safety, love, health, peace, calm. And so here I was in this beautiful environment with my closest friends and family with the right intention, and I'm so grateful that my first experience with the plant was that. And that completely changed the trajectory of my life, Rebecca, in two ways. One was that cannabis itself helped me find homeostasis and balance within my own central nervous system. I could really come back home to my heart. And then from there, now I could engage with the rest of the world as my true self. And that was over years. But really, another kind of big piece was for the first time in my life, I had pursued my own truth rather than taking truth on face value from people,
mm,
from other people. Other people telling me cannabis is bad. Okay, well, let me try this first and then let me make the determination. And I think that's been the most impactful thing that cannabis has ever given me is a door to the truth. And here I am now, 14 years later, I need to go and pursue my own truth for myself. I love the input from the world and my friends and family and people that I trust. But ultimately, the truth that I'm going to speak, the truth that I'm going to embrace in my own heart is because I've experienced it for myself. And that was a big one for me. So,
yeah, I think
yeah,
it's it's interesting because in the military, in any kind of government service, there's do the drug testing for you depending on what unit you're in and how frequently they're doing drug testing. If you get caught with a positive drug test, you'll lose your security clearance, you'll get kicked out. It's very, meanwhile, how many soldiers or Marines or sailors, whatever, just go get shit faced on the weekends after, or
right.
after work and, get in fights at the bars or doing these other things that aren't healthy. But it's kind of, I mean, they really, I think in general society drills it into you, but I would say even more so government service and the military, that like you've got
For
to make a
sure.
decision, like I'm okay that I'm probably not going to get a security clearance again.
And that we have to ask ourselves as veterans, and we have to ask ourselves as human beings, do we want do we want our benefits? Do we want the acceptance of society? Or do we want to get well? And for me, the desire to get well out prioritized anything else. I didn't care. I didn't, cool, lose my benefits. Cool, marginalize me, push me out into the corner, tell me I'm ruining my career, dishonoring, whatever. I want to get well. That's
Mhm.
that's my priority. And for folks that are listening out there, ultimately, I don't think anything is worth more than your own well-being. And that's your own, no one's going to tell you what to do. You got to make that determination for yourself. And I'm grateful, as scary as it was, Rebecca, that I was pretty distraught that I was like, all right, I'll try this. And I'm grateful that I did. Even though the risk was all the risks that we had talked about. You could lose your benefits, your friends don't talk to you anymore, old bosses are like, what are you doing? But again, you got to pursue your truth and you got to listen to your heart. And that's what I did.
Yeah. And we'll get into the parallels with benefits and VA stuff for listeners, but I don't want to stop the momentum of the story and
Okay.
your
Oh,
background.
okay.
Yeah.
Please stop me anytime. But so here I was just wrapping up with business school. I was kind of a closeted cannabis consumer. I didn't really tell a lot of people because I was still shy about it, really. And there was one day I remember I was talking to another veteran going through the transition, and he pulled me aside and he said, "Man, I got to tell you my secret. Like, I can sleep now." I was like, "Oh, amazing. What is it?" And it was as though he was telling me like a very deep secret. And he whispered in
Yeah.
my ear, he's like, "I have a joint that someone gave me at a party. And I take a hit of this joint before, my kids are asleep. And it's the only thing that lets me go to sleep, man." I remember hearing him, and he was so nervous telling me. I was like, you know what? I'm going to share my truth, because if I keep it to myself, that's really not helping the broader veteran community. And so I just started telling people like, "Hey, I'm consuming cannabis and it's helping me." I wasn't saying everybody needs to try cannabis, but I was just sharing my own experience. And so that I moved out to California because I love surfing, and I heard that the California cannabis was really good, and I want to be in tech. And I went to be a consultant in Silicon Valley, um, and I was a consultant at McKinsey, and I was studying how at the time all my projects were about how to defend against Amazon. Whether you
Mm.
were CVS or Walgreens or Walmart, whether you were eBay, there was a real issue with Amazon was killing brick and mortar businesses. And so that was like one input. And then on the weekends, I'd, be in Santa Cruz, California, and I would go and try to order cannabis just like I would order my food or order an Uber as a consultant. And I was really frustrated that there was no digital component to the experience. I didn't know if I was getting the same product. I didn't have any product reviews. I couldn't find if I was like, is this the right price? Where is this strain? Because I really
Hmm.
loved Kosher Kush. Where is it? And so that really inspired me to start Jane. And that was the first time in my professional career that I no longer followed and tried to master the should, but I followed and tried to master myself. And that was a really scary moment, but a really exhilarating, exciting moment to quit my job and say, I have no tech experience really. I have really kind of no idea what I'm doing, but something in my heart is telling me to go and pursue this because I love this so much. Just like I wanted to get well a few years before that, I really wanted to help this industry and help people find access to this plant. And we, at the time, Colorado and Washington were the only two legal state markets. And I said, okay, if we can build a digital infrastructure to support this industry, then this industry is going to be successful. And selfishly, I can go and find the right medicine for myself, and hopefully provide that same experience for millions and millions of people around the world. And formed a co-founding team of my brother and friends. I'm so grateful for them. And that was back in 2017. And we're still here and growing and really feeling like we can do good or do well by doing good in the world. And that mission for us is to continue to protect the integrity of the plant, support the small businesses, unlike maybe Amazon is doing, or just creating a different model where value can push back into the local communities and ultimately provide access to a plant that helps millions and millions of people around the world. And I would never be here if I didn't pursue my own truth and follow my own heart and stop maybe listening to people telling me what I should do and start listening to my own self. And yeah, that lesson will stick with me forever.
So you mentioned finding the right medicine for you. And I think for
Yeah.
people, especially if you're coming out of the military and it was just like it's all off limits and you can drink your heart's content, but pots off limits. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, there's sativa, there's indica. And then within there, there's like the ones that are supposed to be good for anxiety. There's ones that amp you up. There's ones that help with muscle soreness. Like, how do you how do you even begin to navigate what the right medicine is for you if you're getting out and trying to consider?
Yeah. I'm going to speak in broad strokes first, and then I'll talk about what we're doing at Jane to help with this because it's a real issue. Um, I hear many stories of someone being like, I walked into a dispensary. I had no idea. I asked someone, hey, what should I buy? They said, dude, try this. And it was way too strong, or it didn't make me feel calm. It made me feel anxious. I've heard those stories many, many times. So there are a few tenets when trying anything that you're going to put in your body. Number one, understand what's in it. And if the person you're talking to doesn't understand what's in it, talking about terpenes and cannabinoids, then I would suggest you don't take it. You should talk to someone and consult with someone who's educated around it, whether it's a friend. There's some amazing bud tenders that work within the dispensaries that can be really helpful. There's Jane as a resource which you can talk about. But that's kind of the first thing is know what you're putting into your body. Do some research for yourself. The second is know your dose. Go slow, start low, and go slow is an old adage, meaning, hey, I've never tried this before. I'm going to just have a very small amount and see what the impact is. The goal is you should probably try to not feel anything. And then once you start to feel a little bit, that's where I would stop and settle and journal and talk about it with yourself. That's what I used to do. Hey, this strain made me feel this way. And so that was the analog kind of way. Now with digitization, if you think about the last time you purchased anything online, Rebecca, you weren't flying blind. You read
Yeah.
reviews, right? You got recommendations. There's AI now curating stuff for you. And so what we do at Jane is we use that technology to essentially, we think cannabis is really synonymous to music, meaning, I don't want to nerd out on you too much, but we all have these endocannabinoid systems. Think about it as like a puzzle piece, and they're completely custom to the individual. And then cannabis, different plants and different strains are different puzzle pieces, and some fit and some don't. And so, what we've designed at Jane is through billions and billions and billions of data points, we can treat cannabis like Spotify treats music. So that when you listen to a song or you revisit a song over and over again, we're like, okay, Rebecca likes this kind of profile. Let's take the millions of products out there and let's curate it down to like a dozen products. Let's also add verified reviews. We have millions of verified reviews, meaning other people can say, whoa, way too strong, or this really helped me go to sleep, or hey, this was really high in a certain terpene. And it's one thing if you hear it from the brand, it's a whole other thing if you hear it from millions and millions of people who have purchased that product. And that's what we're creating at Jane. And I think I would encourage anybody today exploring the plant to do it in the analog. Go talk to people, go talk to these experts at your local retailer, and then leverage digital tools like Jane to do your research and curate a subset of products that work specifically for you and what you need to do. And that's really fun because yeah, there's a lot of great products out there.
So putting on my tinfoil hat and, the paranoia that I think a lot of veterans leave the
Yeah.
military with, if we created our own profile on Jane and I was like, and I'm uploading like, hey, I kind of like this one made me sleepy, this one caused anxiety. Is that information going to get sent over to the government? What is the data privacy on that?
Oh yeah. It's a wild time out there in the world in terms of privacy and data security. The number, I think this is universal. This isn't just Jane. This is not just cannabis tech. There's an obligation from these tech providers to protect the integrity of the data. And we take that very, very seriously. And that's at the forefront of our terms and service. No, we don't share PII, personal information, with anybody, period. And certainly wouldn't share it with the government. So it is And I can understand the fear around that. But again, are you going to let fear get in the way of your healing?
Mm,
And that's a personal decision. And
yeah.
I'm speaking on the other side of the table as an owner of a tech company. We take and protect data and security and personal information. That is the number one priority for us before we even think about writing any other lines of code.
So if you want to get this information, going on to Jane and creating a profile or creating a login account or something
Yeah.
would be fun.
Yeah. And start just, you don't even have to shop. You just start reading reviews of products. Oh, 1,000 people said this product really helped them go to sleep. Okay. I'm curious about this. Let me go into my dispensary. Let me talk to an expert. And the beautiful part is you could walk out of that dispensary if you don't feel comfortable. Say, you know what? I'm still not comfortable. I'm not going to buy anything today. I'm going to continue my research. And so it's a personal journey. But like anything we put into our bodies, let's make sure we know where it comes from, what's in the ingredients, and set and setting. If we don't remember anything from this conversation, set and setting are the two most important things. Are you setting the right intention with why you're using this product? And are you in a setting, in an environment that's going to be conducive to you achieving your goals?
I think that's really interesting. I think it's really helpful. I know I'm in Florida, um,
Yeah.
and we're still a medical marijuana state. So we have medical marijuana doctors, and like that's the only kind of medicine they practice, um, which there's a place for them. But it's like going to the doctor and the doctor saying, "Hey, yeah, you've got a cold. I'm going to give you antibiotics. Go take your prescription for antibiotics to the pharmacist, and they'll tell you whether it should be penicillin or amoxicillin and whether you should do, you know,
Right.
600 milligrams twice a day or take 200 milligrams every other day. Like, so I think it's just such a crazy, and maybe it's cool. Maybe that's how all medicine should be. It's a little bit more self-driven, but it just seems crazy to me that the doctor would give you a prescription, but not tell you
Oh my God.
dosing or
Oh,
strain or like narrow down the prescription any.
I think at this point in time, I'm speaking to the majority of veterans who have been prescribed prescription drugs. And I'm not disparaging the doctors out there trying to do the right thing, but the responsibility is on the individual. And I'm not saying, oh, hey, the doctors can do whatever they want. They can prescribe opioids or things like that. But at this point in time, I think we've learned as a community, a veteran community, we must take our own healing in our own hands. Because if we don't do that, and I have way too many examples, Rebecca, where veterans, rightly so, have trusted doctor recommendations blindly and then get addicted to opioids and find themselves in trouble and struggling. As a veteran community, let's help each other out. You're doing your part. I'm trying to share my own experience, but ultimately, you'll find the people who have found healing took the healing in their own hands. And I'm not saying it's just cannabis. It's like, hey, I want to do infrared saunas and I want to be a vegan and I want to try these products.
Mm-hmm.
That's your own journey to find your path to healing. And I know that is really frustrating. I know the ideal is like, man, I wish there was a VA system that was curated down to the individual. I think that's unrealistic. And given the data, what we're seeing, we have veterans coming back home who entered the military not addicted to substances and left the military now addicted to alcohol or prescription drugs. And it's on us as veterans to speak out and say, hey, let's take the power into our own hands and find our own way to heal. And I'm not saying that's not through prescription drugs, but let's make sure
Mm-hmm.
it's, hey, yeah, thanks, doc. I appreciate it. I'm going to go do my research now. And I'm going to have conviction. Again, is it the should or the self? I'm going to have conviction with my own self to be like, yeah, this is the path I'm going to go. I'm going to go slow, do my research. I'm going to talk to people. I'm going to validate things. If it's not working, I have the confidence to say no to that anymore. Could be cannabis as well. And I think that's a major shift. And the last thing I'll say on that, Rebecca, is I completely understand why. Listen, when I was in the Army, I just got told what to do. I was a captain. I was a company commander. I still got told what to do. So when you get out and you're like, hey, I'm feeling pain. Hey, I'm not feeling well. Hey, I'm not able to sleep. The doc tells me to do this. I'm going to go and do that. But that hasn't been working. And so, as painful and as hard and as frustrating as that is for veterans, and I'm speaking as part of that community, we got to take our own healing in our own hands. And it's not always going to come from a doc. It's going to come from our own self, our community, other veterans, other healers. And that's how we're going to go and find our own healing. And I've seen many veterans do that, and they are on the other side of it and they're doing great. I think the veterans that get stuck into just being like, hey, tell me what I should do. And I know it's hard when you're feeling so much pain to be like, I can't even think for myself. But man, that's when I would ask those folks that are feeling that way to reach out to their other veteran brothers and sisters, and they'll help them out. Because I don't think it's going to necessarily only come from a doctor. Again, as frustrating as that
Yeah.
might be.
No, I think that's really good insight and good advice. And I think people forget that, especially with psychotropic medications, with
Yeah.
medications that help with mental health issues, it is even with the prescription medications, a lot of times it's trial and error. And what works for one person, their chemistry just might not align with it. Or, I've had so many people tell me, like, I took the meds that my doctor gave me and
Right.
it turned me into a couch potato and I was just catatonic and I couldn't engage with my wife or my kids or
Yes.
go to work. And
Yes.
it was either like, don't sleep or take this drug that knocks me on my ass. And so there was like no alternative, or the doctors were a little bit less. And some are great. Some I've had clients who have
Yes.
VA doctors tell them, hey, I can't prescribe marijuana, but I think this would be healthy for you.
Yes. And that it hits very close to home, Rebecca, because I've had some close friends that I've lost, um, that have just they've been they've been kind of they've trusted the doctors or the prescription drugs too much, and they're stuck. And that's where we as a community need to help those folks out. And we're all doing our part. But I'm going to speak my truth to say, hey, raise your hand, ask for help, say no, say, hey, this isn't working for me. I'm not able to connect with my wife or my kids anymore. Yeah, I'm able to sleep, but this isn't right for me. I'm going to try something else. And I think more vendors need to speak up about that, because we're not just going to blindly follow. That's what we did in the ranks. We did our duty. But now that we're civilians, we're in charge of our own destiny there. And so hopefully as a community, we can help those folks that feel stuck go and find and pursue their own truth. And to your point, there are some wonderful doctors that are thinking holistically about how to heal specific to that individual human being, rather than, here's a blanket, you're feeling pain, let's help you stop the pain, even though those things might have other effects that are negative.
Yeah. No, I think that's great insight. Okay, so you talked generally about doing your own research, using Jane as a leverage to kind of figure out different strains, and you mentioned you could get into some specifics and of kinds of things to look for certain kinds of conditions. I
Yeah.
know we could probably be on here for hours and hours if you went down the
Yeah.
whole, like, this strain does this and that strain does that kind of thing. But are there some thoughts you can share with us about?
Yeah. I would encourage, if you're just starting out, I would say about 80 to 90% of people, when they first are coming to the plant, they need sleep. We need to rest, because if you're not resting, problems compound, right?
Mhm.
If you're not resting, you can't do really anything. You can't heal. What I would recommend, and this is again, this is my own personal recommendation, is I would try, a lot of people don't like smoking something. I would try something that's a very low dose THC, high in CBD. Just try that first. And why I say that is CBD is an unbelievably effective anti-inflammatory. THC is the psychoactive substance. It's a beautiful thing. It can heal it can increase neuroplasticity. It can heal trauma. But as you're kind of stepping slowly into the lake of cannabis, the waters of cannabis, I think CBD is what I would prioritize to see if you can feel that sense of it's like drinking a warm cup of milk before you go to sleep. Just it's not gonna you're not gonna be like, oh my god, I'm so high. It's like I feel calmer,
Mhm.
and then just try that. The one thing I will say though is that if you are in pain, if it's like, man, I have just horrible back pain, or I went through surgery, or something like that, THC is really effective for pain management, and it's not addictive, not physically addictive, unlike other pain meds. So there's a balance there between CBD and THC. The bottom line is I would use both. I wouldn't say just only pure CBD or only pure THC. They tend to complement one another, meaning the more CBD you have, the less psychoactive effects you'll experience. And the more THC you'll have, the more effective the CBD will be at getting rid of the inflammation, which is the cause of most things, most ailments. So
Topical versus oral versus
great
smoke
question.
for pain.
Okay, love it. Yeah. Topical, if you have like man, I love topical creams and patches. They'll come in patches. Extremely effective for acute pain, I'll say. Tinctures are another great sublingual tinctures. It's like a little droplet of cannabis oil, essentially, that you're putting in your mouth. Edibles are great, but do your research, meaning start low, go slow, understand that there's a delayed response. You're not going to feel it immediately. The smoking is instantaneously. So if you're like, hey, I'm in a really tough spot, I need relief now, that the inhalation of cannabis is really helpful. It's I'm not a scientist, but it helps. I won't pretend to know. So there are different form factors for different things. I have someone in our family. She's in her 80s. She just went through knee surgery. She never tried cannabis before in her life, Rebecca. Never. She was against it. In fact,
Right.
she's married to a veteran, different time. She was in excruciating pain. We gave her an indica gummy along with a CBD gummy. She took it, and now she's the biggest fan of that brand. So shout out to Wild Indica gummies out there, as well as their CBD gummies. But now she's a huge fan of that. And that dose, she knows the brand, she knows the flavor. Cool. So ask around. And if there are veterans out there that don't have anybody in their social circles to talk to, just walk into a dispensary. Again, you don't have to buy anything, just go talk. And then those bud tenders will tell you their recommendation. They'll also give you access to other resources out there in your community where you can go and find this information. So that's like CBD, THC. We talked about different form factors. And then the last thing is there's these things called terpenes, which are other chemical compounds within the plant, natural. They grow in like mangoes and lavender. They're terpenes that you could smell it. Those also have an effect. That gets really overwhelming for people when they're like, what is myrcene or limonene? That's why I would use a digital tool like Jane and be like, hey, sleep. You could search for that keyword and it'll curate products that have the right chemical compounds that will help you get to sleep. And that's verified through millions and millions of product reviews as well. So I would say if you need instant relief, a topical for acute pain, or if you need some like peace of mind, one inhalation of a joint or a vape. And then for stuff like sleep as a routine, a wellness routine, I think edibles are wonderful things. And I mix the THC and CBD along with that.
So if you're doing a topical, I'm assuming some of it gets into your bloodstream. Are you able to put on a patch and go to work or
Oh yeah.
operate heavy machinery? Or I mean, what? I mean,
Well, oh,
I'm not asking the legal terms
no. It's a great
necessarily, but
question. Yeah, it's a great question. It won't be like psychoactive, but if you're trying anything for the first time, again, that comes back to set and
yeah.
setting. Be like, cool. I'm a Saturday. I got nothing to do. I got nowhere to go. Let me experience for the first time and have my relationship with this plant and figure that out. I would not try cannabis for the first time and then, go to work. because that's not the right setting for me. That would give me anxiety of like, oh my God, is it
Yeah.
happening yet? Is it not? Oh, geez. So, in the privacy of your own home, surrounded by loved ones in a safe environment, go try this out. Again, this is the personal experience. This is bringing the power back to the individual for that. But specifically, topical creams, no, you will not. I don't want to speak for everyone because some people are very sensitive. My wife
Hmm.
is very, very sensitive to cannabis. But if you try topical cream, you will most likely not feel any kind of psychoactive effects. But I would recommend that you try that for yourself in a safe environment.
That's awesome because I know a lot of our veterans are kind of struggling with, can they work? Are they going to get
Yeah,
unemployability if they can't work? What are there certain things that are going to allow them to work and push
yeah,
through the pain? You can't sit in a chair for 8 hours or something. And
correct. Try
yeah,
it out. Try it on a weekend. Say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna try this. See how this feels. Oh yeah, okay. I could do work on this. This is fine. I mean, I consume and I do work. I consume different things for different reasons, but that is that's over years and years and years of experimenting and figuring out what works best for me in the right scenarios. What's
yeah,
crazy too, Rebecca, is that in the army, I would get off the flight line and go drink beers, and no one ever questioned that.
yeah.
And it's a crazy concept. So let's be intentional with what we put in our body, and again, that personal relationship with the plant that you can develop.
Yeah, no, that's awesome advice. Okay, I've got on here to talk about the relationship between cannabis and VA disability benefits. Because I know that's one of the fears. People are always afraid, are they going to take away my guns? And are
Right.
they going to take away my VA benefits? Because I'm not going to
Yep.
smoke something, I need this money to live on. Are they going to take away my benefits if I start smoking it?
Yep. The fortunate piece is that the VA, you will not lose your benefits. So grateful for the VA for understanding that this should not be an or. It shouldn't be like, oh, if you try cannabis, you either get your benefits or you get well. It should be an and. It should be an and I'm really grateful for the VA for stepping up for that. And I think that's largely coming from the veteran community raising their hands and being like, hey, future generations need to benefit from this. But let's say you did lose your benefits. Let's say you lost guns. Would you rather be unwell with benefits, unwell with a gun? And this is an extreme, Rebecca. This is just a
Yeah.
hypothetical. Or would you rather have no guns, no benefits, and feel well? And for those that are really feeling unwell, there's no question. It was certainly was no question for me. But to answer your question directly, no, you will not lose your benefits if you're, you know, if you prioritize your guns over getting well or trying cannabis, then that's a personal decision. But coming back to what we were talking about earlier in this discussion, I can't think of anything that would out prioritize your own wellness and well being because that from there that's your life. And yeah, that based on my own experience, that's what I prioritize, and I haven't looked back since. So it's a great
And
question.
as far
Yeah,
as the guns, I mean, I know there's different state licensing laws and stuff like that, but generally what we're seeing is the states only get involved and take stuff away if they really think that you're a safety risk to yourself or others. And that comes more from not medicating, whether self-medicating or, using the plant medication or getting treatment from VA. So, I mean, I know we see big issues with the pilot community because
yeah,
of the FAA regulating,
yeah,
and so people are like, well, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to deal with it on my own by drinking beers or or doing
yeah.
whatever. Because if I get help, then they're going to take away my
And that's
pilot's
a real,
license. And
yeah. And that I had I had a friend who was a pilot. He was a pilot in the military. He got out. He was a pilot, and the only thing that helped him was cannabis, and he quietly took it. And it was I was I watched him really struggle, kind of not being able to be public with his own healing, and that's a really tough position to be in. And there are some tough decisions that you're going to have to make in your life. But again, I just come back to your point. That's a great point, Rebecca. You could keep your gun. You don't try cannabis. You don't get well, but you have your gun. Guess what you are going to lose? And I'm not saying cannabis is the only thing, but if you don't prioritize your well being, right, you're going to lose your health, your sense of self, you lose your family, your community, but you keep your gun.
Maybe unless you unless you go off the deep
Exactly.
end and they, and then you lose that
Exactly.
too. So
Yeah.
yeah, no,
But
I
let's,
think it's super important to prioritize your health. And it's hard, because when you were in, I mean, how many times did they call you a sick bay commando if you went to the
oh man.
doctor, or if you
Oh,
prioritize your own health while you're in, you're
how about
stigmatized.
this? If you prioritize yourself, if you said, you know what, I got to go be with my kids. I'm sorry that you just didn't do that in the military, right? And
No.
I know you're a military spouse, Rebecca. You felt that firsthand.
Yeah.
So, and again, we're done with our time. We've served it. We've served it well. Now, I used to think that prioritizing my own well-being was selfish. Right? You're trained. Oh, you don't eat, don't sleep. You eat last. You go you're first in, you're last out. It's the unit over your family. Well, guess what? The unit is no longer there. The mission now is yourself and your family and your well-being. So you have an obligation, in my opinion, to get well, because you can't serve anyone if you're not yet first serving yourself. And that was a lesson that took me 10 years to realize, to figure out, Rebecca. When I got out of the Army, I was
Yeah.
like, oh man, that actually isn't selfish. That's actually the right thing to do, so that if I can take care of myself, I can be a good father, I can be a good husband, I can be a good brother, a friend, a good CEO. And that was the shift. And I think a lot of veterans are starting to realize that, at least the ones that are healing. And we need to speak up about that, that it's actually not selfish. Maybe in the unit it was, but it's no longer selfish now.
Yeah, no, I think that's huge. And I hear that all the time, that people don't want to apply for VA benefits because they think they're taking them away from somebody else, which is not how the VA system works
No.
at all. You're not taking it away from somebody who's worse off than you are, or somebody who deserves it more than you do.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but it's,
Veterans come home. If you think about what most veterans have done, they're selfless people who signed up to help,
mhm,
who probably most likely statistically came from under resourced, traumatized communities. And so that I don't deserve this, give it to somebody else. That's baked into our DNA. And there are too many beautiful, special human beings who are in the veteran community who could do so much incredible stuff in this world, that are denying themselves the right to heal because of whatever they've been told. For anybody listening there, you are too special. Take care of yourself so that you can take care of the world. The world needs it, especially from this community, more and more.
yeah, no, I think that's awesome. And I'm, as you're saying these words, I'm thinking of specific clients and specific, I'm like, this person needs to hear it. This person needs to hear it. So
Yeah,
I know it's going to
we
resonate
all
with
do.
a lot of people listening.
Yeah, we all do.
Yeah.
We all, you know, I have a mom who puts herself last, and I'm trying to tell her, hey, you got to put yourself first so that you could be the mom for, for the fam. And that's, so it's not just the veteran community, it's all of us. Let's start
Yeah.
taking care of ourselves, and let's start taking the power back to ourselves to heal ourselves in our own ways. And I'm not saying it has to be cannabis, but man, let's open the optionality for ourselves. And that's where it kind of becomes goes from like scary or limiting to like kind of fun, to be like, cool, all right, I'm going to chart my own path to heal. And maybe it's cannabis, maybe it's yoga, maybe it's going to the doctors, whatever that is. But I'm doing this so I can do this for myself and then do it for the world.
Yeah. I think it's really cool. VA is doing certain research projects, and, I know
Really
it's
cool.
geographically limited to where, if your VA happens to be doing one of these projects, but, there's somewhere it's hyperbaric chambers and somewhere it's marijuana or psilocybins
And
or,
MDMA, and yeah,
yeah,
it's really, and the reason why those changes are happening, Rebecca, is because of people like you, communities like this, the veterans themselves saying, you know what, we served our time. We're going to do this for our own communities. Heroic Hearts out there is an unbelievable nonprofit out there run by veterans, started by a veteran who wants to share and make available in a really, again, a safe setting and with the right intention to go and help people. And that's just not plant medicine. There are walk and talks. There's Operation Evac. There's Veteran Surf Alliance in Santa Cruz. There's yoga retreats. There's, healing animals. There's horse meditation. Veterans are starting to be like, there are different ways to heal rather than just sitting at the VFW drinking a beer, lamenting about the good old days. And that's a
Yeah.
really cool thing because the warrior class needs it. And it's been done for thousands and thousands of years. We need to reintroduce coming back home and welcoming the next generation of veterans and warriors back home. And that's current veterans and warriors need to be doing that. And I can't thank you enough, Rebecca, for really helping out with the community there. Really.
Yeah. No, thank you. I could probably talk to you for hours, but
Same.
do you have anything else that you kind of last words you want to leave the audience with? Ways that they can reach out to Jane, ways they can connect with Jane, or kind of final
Yeah.
thoughts to share with them?
Yeah. Reach out to me. I'm not really on social media, but I'm on LinkedIn. So if you have any questions, just reach out. As a veteran, check us out at iheartjane.com to do some research. But my hope for everyone is that we can find our way back home to our hearts. And the only way we do that is it's an inside job, and it's scary and it's tough and it's hard. It's not maybe something that we're used to, coming from the military where we're told what to do. As wild and crazy as that adventure is the only adventure worth taking. And that's back home to the heart. So I hope everybody can find their way back home to the heart. And cannabis has certainly helped me. It hasn't been the only thing, but a really good friend and ally as I've been walking my path back home.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing your story and for sharing all this information with us. I really appreciate your time, and I'm sure people will be reaching out to you.
Likewise. Thanks so much, Rebecca. Really appreciate it.